now that we are able to add and remove items from the cart, now what I want to do is I want to create the total amount. Okay, so basically I'm going to add the prices of all the books that are there in my cart currently, and that should be our total amount. Okay, because I need the total amount for the checkout. So let's go back to our code, and what I'm going to do is let's go back, let's go to our cart items dot container, because like here we have like imported our cart items, and I would want to show the total amount at the bottom end, probably an h2 tag here as well, saying total amount equals to, and here probably I'm going to add the total amount. Currently I'm just going to add 1000. Let's just save that, and let's see how this looks. Okay, this is okay, this is good. So let's create the total amount like functionality by adding um, the prices from the books that are there in our cart. So currently the book details are basically inside this cart items. So every time when we add or like remove items from the cart, we have to calculate the amount then and there. Okay, so our application has to know when like we are adding items to the cart and when we are removing it from the cart. So in our app.js, you can see that we have set our cart items and set cart items. We are also going to create our total amount state over here. So let me create that. So I'm going to say const, and here I'm going to type total amount, and I'm going to say set total amount use state, and I'm going to currently set that to 0 by default. Okay, because by default I think the amount should be 0 because there won't be any items in our cart. And below this app, like we have created this use effect that runs whenever there is a change in our cart items, right? So let's just uncomment that, and let me just save this, and let me just show you one thing. So if I go back to my books, right, if I inspect this page, go to console, now every time I add a book, I'm going to get a console log of this cart items. Okay, so if I add this book, as you can see, like we are getting an array over here, and which includes the information of the current book that we have added to the cart. And again, let's say if I go to another book and I add this book, again I'm going to get an array, right? And this time it's going to be two books, the book that we have added previously and this one. And if I go to my cart and if I remove any book from here, then also we are getting this array right here that contains our book details. Okay, so every time I add or remove items from the cart, we are getting this console log. So here now, instead of console logging just cart items, what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate the amount, and by amount I'm just going to add all the prices of the books that are there inside the cart. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a variable. So let total is equals to 0, right? And I'm going to loop through all the cart items first. So let's just do that. So console dot log, not console dot log. So cart items dot for each, I'm going to use a for each loop, and for each item I'm going to, let me just console dot log item dot price. Okay, let's just save that. Let me go to my browser and let me go to books. So if I add this book, if I click on add to cart here, yeah, we should get its price. Okay, so currently it's 108, which is this price. And if I go back, if I click this book right here, The Alchemist, and if I add to cart, now you're going to see two things. One is the 108 and the other one is 286, which is the price of this book. So we are getting the prices of all the books that are there inside our cart. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add those prices. Total is equals to total plus item. All right, so what this basically means is that first we'll have a variable. First we'll have a value of 0 for total because we have already set it to initial value of 0. Then what happens is that every time we loop through these cart items, it's going to add the price of that particular item, okay, which resides in our item.price. So basically this is how we are going to calculate our total. So every time we loop through that cart items, the cart item price is going to get added to our total. So eventually we'll get our entire total price. And finally what we are going to do is we are going to set our total amount, and the value inside this should be total. Okay, and this set total amount is basically going to set our total amount, which we are going to pass through our cart context provider. Okay, so here I'm going to pass total amount. Okay, I'm not going to pass the set total amount here because we don't need it in our child components. We just need the set total amount here. So I'm not going to pass that, but I'm going to pass the total amount because we are going to need it inside the cart items container. Okay, so let's just save this, and in our cart items container, along with the cart items, let me also import uh, total amount. Okay, and here instead of this 1000, I'm going to add the value of total amount. All right, so we should get the total amount over here. So let's just save that and see. Now currently you can see that the total amount is 0 because initially we have set our total amount to 0 in our app.js. Okay, but when we add any book, let's say this jungle book over here, if we add to cart, okay, let's just go to our cart now. You can see that instead of the 0 we are getting the total amount of 0340 currently. So we should actually get 340, but currently we are getting this 0340, and I know like why this is happening. And the reason why is because instead of getting added, these two values are getting concatenated because item.price by default is our string. So if you go to bookdata.js, you can see that like price is string instead of a number, right? So basically what is happening is that in this code over here where we calculate our total, instead of getting added, these two values are getting concatenated like a string, and that is basically um, being set over here. So in order to prevent that, I have to change this item.price into an integer type. Okay, and to do that, JavaScript by default has a function called parse int. Okay, and inside the brackets we are going to add item.price. Now if you save this and go back, add any book, go to cart. Now you can see that instead of 0305 we are getting 305, which is okay because now instead of getting concatenated, the values are being added because we have like converted this price into an integer from a string. Okay, so now this is going to behave as an integer and the total is going to get added. If I also include another book, let's say this book right here, let's just add to cart. And if I go to our cart, now you can see the total amount has been changed to 445, which is the total of this price and this price, which is really cool. Okay, and let me also add another book, this one right here. Let's just add to cart and go back to our cart page. Now we have these three books, and you can see that the total amount is now increased to 755. So we are being able to we are being able to calculate the total amount. The final thing I want to have here is the rupee sign. So let me add the code of the rupee sign here. okay, just outside the parentheses, outside the curly brackets, and I'm going to add it here, which is ampersand hash 8377. Let's just save this, go back to our browser, and you can see that we have this rupee sign. All right guys, so we are being able to add the total amount, so this looks fine for now. And finally, like, I want to have a checkout, or like proceed to checkout button over here. So let me create that button as well. So if I go down below, yeah, let's just create a button that says proceed to checkout, and I'm going to give a style of button primary. If you guys remember, we have actually created our primary button class in our index.css so that we can use it globally, right? So we're going to use that class. So we have button primary over here, and if I save this, let's go back. Currently it's getting crashed. I don't know why. If I go to console, okay, I think I made a mistake. Instead of this style, it should be class name. My bad. Let's go back now. Okay, we have this proceed to checkout button now. Okay, this is working fine. Now currently, when our total amount is 0, we don't want to show this content over here. We just want to show a text that says your cart is empty, or something like that. Okay, so let me go back to our code. Let me copy this section, right? And here let me add the opening and closing braces, because we need some JavaScript over here that says that checks whether our total amount is 0 or not. So I'm going to say total amount is equals to 0, right? And like, if the total amount is equal to 0, then we are going to return a text that says currently your cart is empty, or something like that. Okay, and if the total amount is not 0, then what we are going to do is we are going to like show that entire the cart styles. Okay, so here I'm going to add a react fragment. So react dot fragment, let me close this with react dot fragment, and inside this I'm just going to paste whatever I had copied earlier, which is this, because we are going to show these contents when the total amount is not 0. And when the total amount is 0, I'm just going to add a simple text over here, kind of like an h2, not h1, h2, that says currently your cart is empty. Cart is empty. Okay, I think there is something mistake. There is a typo here in our fragment, that is we need to have a G over here. Let's just save this and see. Okay, now we are getting currently your cart is empty text, which is fine, which is what I want. And if I go to books, and if I add any book to our cart, now we should not see that text. There you go guys, now we are getting this cart content instead of that text. Again, if I remove this item from the cart, now it's saying currently your cart is empty. Okay, now we have set the dynamic content as well. So now that we have created our total amount, now what I want to do is handle the checkout functionality, because currently this button is not doing anything. So in order to handle our checkout functionality, we are going to use the Stripe API. Now if you don't know what Stripe is, like, Stripe is an API which is used to handle payments, right? So we're going to use that API in our project as well. Now we are not going to handle our actual payment, because currently, like, this is a dummy site, this is a dummy project, and this is not a real project. So in order to handle the front end of our checkout, I'm going to use a library which is called React Stripe Checkout. So if I go here, React Stripe Checkout. So React Stripe Checkout component is pretty cool library that kind of helps us handle the checkout from the front end side. All right, you can read the documentation over here. It's not that big. So basically what we need to do is we need to install the React Stripe Checkout, and we need to initialize it, right? And basically it gives us one component, which is this Stripe Checkout, right? And like, it has a lot of props going on over here, but the props that we need to currently focus on is this Stripe key, which you get from your Stripe account. Like, once you create the account in the Stripe, um, this token that this Stripe Checkout is going to give once the payment is handled, this name, this description, which you can add on the front end side, the image as well, and yeah, the amount that we are going to transfer, right? Here we are going to add our total amount and the currency as well. So we need these props. We don't need everything, but some of these props along with this component, and we can handle the checkout from the front end side. Okay, so if you're using Stripe for the first time, you actually need to sign in, and once you've signed in, like, you need to I think you need to verify your email or something like that, but you will be like redirected to your dashboard, which kind of looks like this currently. And make sure that the test mode is on because you don't want to use the production mode. And you don't need to activate payments for now, because that's all for production. But what we need to focus on here is this publishable key, because this is the key that we are going to use uh, in our like Stripe checkout component over here. All right, so we do need this key, and that is what we need currently from this dashboard. If I quickly go to search and search API, you have this API keys over here. So if you just click on it, you will get this publishable key, which you can copy it by just clicking on it, right? And we can use this key here in order to configure our Stripe checkout. All right, so let me go back to our code and let me quickly add or like install this library, which is npm install react stripe checkout. So I'm gonna say npm install react stripe checkout. All right, and now that the library has been installed, I'm going to configure it over here in our cart items container. So I'm gonna say import like stripe checkout, and from react stripe checkout. Okay, and we are going to use this stripe checkout component right over here. Okay, so let's just for now like create it below this button. So I'm gonna say stripe stripe checkout, something like this. Let's not make it add a closing tag, but instead add the closing tag here. So let's just save this, right? And let's just save this and see how like this component is turning out in our browser. So if I go to my browser, you can see that here we have this new button that says pay with card, and if I click on it, currently it's saying that Stripe checkout is missing the required key parameter. Okay, yeah, but like we are getting this kind of like a model, kind of like a pop-up that's asking for my email and my card details. Okay, so this is what this Stripe checkout component gives it by default. So it's a pretty good helpful component that quickly takes on our payments UI. And here we are going to add some like props. The first one would be the name prop, right? And so this is going to be our main kind of like a heading of the checkout pop-up. So here I'm going to add or something like book checkout, something like this. All right, let's just see how this looks. If I pay with card, yeah, you are getting this header over here, and that is because we have added the name prop. Okay, another thing that we need to add here is description. All right, and here I'm going to add, please fill in the details below, something like this. Okay, let's just save that and see what we get. All right, we're getting this text. And the next thing that I want here is the actual amount. So we are going to say amount, and like these props are basically there in the documentation. You can check that out. Okay, like if I open the documentation, you have this entire collection of props that you can like try and test it out. I'm just using the main important one that I currently need in this project. So we have this amount prop over here, and I'm using that only. I'm currently using that. So for the amount, I'm going to add the total amount, and I think currently we won't get the actual amount. Currently we will get the amount in the two decimal places. Let me check. So if I click here, yeah, instead of 815, I'm getting $8.15, because currently we have currently by default the currency is set in USD. We need to change that, so I'm gonna say currency, and instead of USD I'm going to add INR. You can add any currency that of the country where you live in. So currently I'm in India, so I'm adding INR. Let's just save that and see. Okay, now you can see that as soon as I added INR, the sign is changed from dollar to rupees, but the value of the amount is kind of same. All right, so instead of 8.15, I need 815. And since I know that every time it's taking two decimal places, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to multiply this total amount by 100, and that should solve our issue. Let's just check if this works or not. There you go, guys. Now we are getting 815 instead of 8.15, which is okay. And finally we need two more things here, which is the stripe key, which is the most important thing, to be honest. And this key is basically our this key over here, this publishable key over here. So unless and until you won't pass this key, you are going to get errors like this. Okay, so here I'm just going to create a variable over here that's going to say const stripe key is equals to, and I'm going to set it to this key over here, which I've just copied it from my Stripe dashboard. You can copy it from here as well. Okay, it should be stripe key, and let me add that stripe key over here. So here I'm going to say stripe key, which is this value. All right, let's just save this. And finally I need one last prop, which is token. All right, and this token prop is, and inside this we are basically going to add a function, all right, that is going to receive a token once the checkout has been handled from the front end side. So like if your checkout is complete from the front end side, then you will get a token, and through that token you can like pass that token to the backend in order to create the actual payment. So from the front end side only, you won't be able to actually handle the entire payment. You need some little bit of backend as well. You need to set up a little bit of backend as well in order to create the entire payment process, but we won't be handling the backend part because I think that is currently out of scope for this project. um, but we are still going to handle the front end payment part, all right, which we are currently doing. But later on I might create a video where I'm going to handle everything from the front end to the back end. I might create a one stack e-commerce project where I'll be handling the entire like Stripe payments, but currently I'm just handling the front end side. So coming back to our token, we are going to add a function here that's going to receive a token once the payment has been processed from the front end side. So here I'm just going to say on token, right? And this on token is basically going to be our function, which we are going to define it here. So I'm going to say const on token, all right, and here basically I'm going to get a token from the component, this component over here, Stripe checkout. And inside this function, for now I'm just going to console.log, and I'm going to console log token, and let's just see what we get once the payment is complete. Okay, let me refresh this page. Let me add some books to our cart. All right, now let's go back to our cart section. Okay, now we have these two books, we have the total amount sent. Now let's just pay with this card. All right, so let me add that like test@gmail.com, just a dummy email. And like Stripe provides you with a dummy card number that you can use for testing. So for the card number, I'm going to say 4242424242424242. All right, and for the month and year, I'm going to add 1234, and for the CVC I'm going to add 567. So this is our dummy card number value that the Stripe provides us in order to check its API, in order to test its API. Okay, so now if I pay this, let me also like inspect the screen so that we can see what we get uh, as our token. Okay, so now if I like proceed to payment, you can see that this is working and we are getting a token here as well. Okay, so if I check this token, now this is the information of the card currently. Okay, you have the card ID, you have the like email that we had given, everything right over here. And basically this is the token that we need to pass to the backend in order to make the complete payment. Currently the payment is still not being processed, we are still in the middle of it, but from the front end side, the whatever that we need to do in terms of the payment is done. Okay, now this token is going to get handled by the backend side, and the backend side is going to complete the payment. But from the front end side, what we needed to do is actually complete. So this is what you have to do from the front end side in order to actually make in order to actually create the payment. And like there are more ways, there are lots of ways that Stripe provides in order to create the payment. Like this is just one way of doing it. Okay, and here let me also add a billing address, because every e-commerce site should have a billing address. So here right below in our Stripe checkout component, I'm going to add a prop called billing address. You don't need to add any value over here. If you just save this and let me add some books. Okay, let's go to our cart. Now if you pay with card, you can see that now we are getting this forms. Now we are getting this billing address form. Okay, and let me just add a test values here. Okay, let's just click on the payment info. Now it's asking for my card number. Let me just add a 42424242 0123 and 4, not 0123 but like 1234, and here let's add 567. Let me proceed with the payment again. Now you can see that the payment has been processed from the front end side and we are getting the token again. Okay, and inside this we have the card information, and now here you can see that we have some information over here as well, which can be used for in order to make the delivery. And again, as I said previously, this token is going to get handled from the backend side, and then the complete payment is going to get processed. From the front end side, like this is what we have to do in order to make the payment. Now here what I want to do is I'm just going to like create an alert saying that your payment has been processed, and then redirect the user to our books page. Okay, so first I'm going to create an alert by saying your payment has been processed. All right, now in reality what we need to do here is we need to send this token to the backend. Then once that backend completes the payment, then it's going to return us like a response, and depending on that response we need to say whether the payment has been processed or whether the payment has been failed. All right, but currently there is no backend over here, so I'm just going to I'm just saying your payment has been processed. Okay, and finally I need to like redirect our user to our books page. So for that I need to use the use navigate hook from the React Router DOM, which I can import it here. So let's just import use navigate all right, from React Router DOM, and let's just initialize it here. So I'm going to say const navigate is equals to use navigate, and let's add a semicolon here, and let's just use this navigate function in order to navigate our user to our books page. Let's just save this. Let's try the payment one more time. Let me refresh the page, go to books, add a book, go to cart, and now let's try the payment. Test. All right, let's click the payment info now. Okay, I haven't set the address. All right, cool. So let's just give our card information. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Let's just pay. Okay, we are getting the token, and we are also getting the alert that says your payment has been processed. Now if I click this OK, now we are being redirected to our books page. Now this flow is working as well. Finally, if I go to our cart, you can see that this these two buttons are there, but what I want is I want this button to handle the checkout and not this button, right? So what we need to do for that is, instead of creating this single component, we need to enclose this like button with this like stripe checkout component. So I'm going to remove this slash from here, and I'm going to create a closing tag for this component, and inside of this closing tag I'm going to add this button that we had over here. Okay, and now if I save this, now we won't see that button that we had previously because we have added that functionality inside this button. Okay, so in order to like resolve that issue, all you have to do is you have to create the closing tag for this component, and inside that you have to add any button that you want. Okay, you can have any classes for that, but that button is going to handle the payment. So if I click here, as you can see, like this is like opening the checkout pop-up. All right, this is cool. All right guys, now that we have handled the cards section and the payment section as well, our project is almost like 80 to 90% done. We have like created the UI, we have created the routes, we have created this listing of these books, we have created their details page, we have added the functionality to add to cart and remove from the cart, and we have also added the functionality to proceed the checkout, and we have also created the authentication flow as well. So the most of the things we have completed. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to like create the functionalities of few things that we have actually missed. And one thing is that, and you might have noticed this by now, is that if I go below and if I click this add to cart, okay, we are actually coming to the footer. Like we are getting to this page, this which is book details, but instead of going like starting from the top, we are actually going to the bottom. And let me try that out again with, let's say, this book. You can see that instead of starting from the top, we are actually starting from the bottom. So we don't I don't want this to happen. Like whenever I go to a different route, I want to start the site from the top and not from like middle or bottom. So in order to do that, we have to create a scroll to top functionality from the React router, and that functionality is basically says that, so that functionality, what that functionality basically is that whenever there is a change in the route, we are going to set our window to the topmost position, which is, we're going to start from here. Okay, we are going to set the window to the topmost position. Okay, so what that will do is, whenever you like go to any kind of, whenever you like change route, every time you're going to start from the top instead of the bottom. So yeah, let's start creating that functionality. Let me close these tabs for now, because the payment from the front end is currently handled, and let's start working on the scroll to top functionality.